opportunities in IO psychology. I am Dina Berggren, and I will be your moderator here today. Whether you're new to the IO field or getting ready for your next career move, we have an information-packed program planned for you today. Before we introduce today's speakers, I'd like to introduce you to the Career Services Center team. The Walden Career Services Center aspires to be a cutting-edge global career center preparing our learners to navigate career transition over a lifetime. To achieve this vision, we educate, coach, and advise our learners to proactively manage their careers. To help us get started, let's go ahead and get some feedback from our audience. Since industrial organizational psychology is such a broad field, we'd like to find out from you, what is your primary career goal? Please type in your answers using the questions box on your control panel, and we will check the responses. So what is your primary career goal? Okay, a popular career goal is consulting. Many of you are looking to become industrial organizational consultants. Any other career goals out there? Okay, inform small businesses of IO through consulting and public speaking, leadership consulting, teaching, management consulting, healthcare administrator, consulting and lecturer. Great, so consulting is very popular and will definitely be a topic we will address here today. And other topics, sales, organization management, and organization development. Excellent. Thank you everyone for your feedback. And I would now like to introduce today's panelists. Our first panelist is Dr. Lori LaCivita. She's the Program Director of the MS and PhD Organizational Psychology programs at Walden. Joining us here today are also two faculty members, Dr. Donna DiMatteo-Gibson and also Dr. Stephen Lifrak. And we have a Walden alumna joining us today, Dr. Brigit Olsen. And now I would like to formally welcome our first presenter, Dr. Lori LaCivita. Dr. LaCivita earned her PhD in psychology with a specialization in industrial organizational psychology. She brings over 20 years experience in higher ed and IO consultation. She holds the position of program director at Walden University and has presented and published professionally in areas of emotional intelligence, learning-centered approaches to education, and employee organizational development. She is actively engaged in work that is focused on emotional intelligence assessment and enhancement of leaders and teams, faculty development, evidence-based coaching and mentoring, professional development, performance enhancement, and leadership development. Dr. LaCivita brings a powerful combination of experience in higher ed and IO psych with a unique background of innovative presentation, consulting skills, and thinking methodologies. Her work also includes crisis response and crisis training and development for leaders, teams, and organizations. And with this introduction, I would now like to hand it over to you, Dr. LaCivita, to discuss our agenda.
Great, Dina. Thank you so very much. Okay, we have a very full agenda, and I want to thank everybody for attending. I think you're going to find that this is a very enlightening and informative webinar. We're really here to help you to understand the field of IO psychology and also the opportunities that are available to you should you decide to pursue this career path. So the three areas that we'll be discussing tonight are the career options, as I said earlier, and then also how to gain skills and qualifications to increase your marketability in this field, and then how do you actually build your professional network and expertise. So we have a very well-rounded agenda with really excellent presenters that I think you'll learn a great deal from and gain some insights into the field. So with that said, let's move forward. What an exciting time to be an IO psychologist. We represent the fastest growing field in psychology, and this is really the opportune time for us to pursue objectives that will enable us to become a driving force and a catalyst for change in business, industry, labor, public, academic, community, and health organizations. Those of you that said that you were interested in consulting, there's an opportune time for you to actually go into the field to do that type of work, because we're now challenged with building the organizations of the future. We saw with the economic downturn that organizations downsized, they outsourced, and they did everything they could to survive. This often meant stripping the organization and reducing the workforce, as well as trying to delete programs that they thought of as non-essential, such as training and development of their employees, and really working to build the organization. They were more interested in trying to survive that economic downturn. What we see now, though, is an evolution of organizations, and that work has significant implications for IO psychologists. We're really thinking about how do we meet the challenges of the new world of work. What forms will that work take? How will jobs now be designed? What are the skill requirements associated with these new forms of jobs? How do organizations motivate employees in an atmosphere of fear, which is really what became prevalent when we saw that economic downturn? Now that we see things improving, organizations are interested in building for sustainability, and that's where IO psychologists come in. We are here to guide and support organizations on how to maintain and increase performance effectiveness with new structures of organizations and work. And we really help employers select the right people for new forms of jobs. We help set performance expectations that are linked to corporate strategies and evaluate and manage performance of employees and develop compensation systems that are flexible and perceived as fair. And how do we really develop that workforce now so that organizations, again, can become sustainable? So if, in fact, we do have another economic crisis, how do they actually sustain themselves through that without having to really pull away or strip that organization down to bare essentials? So it's a very exciting time to be an IO psychologist. I'm very passionate about this field. There's so much opportunity, and there's so many different varied areas that you can pursue. So I'm just so pleased to be able to talk with you about that. Moving forward. So as I said earlier, IO psychology is the fastest growing specialization, fastest field actually in psychology. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects a 53% growth for IO psychologists between the years 2012 and 2022. And we're actually listed as the #1 career choice via the Bureau of Labor Statistics because of the need that's there, because we are building the organizations of the future. Globalization is another area that's very important to us. It's a dominant trend right now. Gone are the days where an organization's primary competition was the rival across town. We have competitors that now exist at the global level. When larger organizations want an accurate representation of their industry, they refer to Fortune 500 companies as Fortune's Global 500. So increased globalization has many implications for us. One example is that globalization may increase the importance of cross-cultural leadership. For those of you that said that you were interested in working with leadership development, with accompanying changes in organizational policies and practices. Globalization has also enhanced the need for and the use of virtual workplaces. Just like we're meeting here tonight virtually, well, that now is becoming a common practice in global organizations. Virtual workplaces may well change both how IO psychologists perform their daily duties and the scope of our projects. With all the technology advances that we have, such as electronic whiteboards, we have Skype, it allows us to collaborate with individuals and other employees sitting on opposite sides of the world. So we're really now investigating issues involving virtual workplaces, how they impact social relationships, whether employees feel the same level of commitment in such environments, and the effects on the organizational culture and communication. So that's an area that is really something that we're looking towards, and quite a bit of research is being done. Moving forward. So what do IO psychologists and practitioners do? Well, you're going to see a lot of things on the slides that we're presenting from this point forward. There are so many different areas of opportunity. We develop strategies that build better organizations. We hire employees who are a good fit. There's a lot of work being done in assessment and selection because return on investment, it takes a lot of money to hire someone. If you hire the wrong person for the job, you train them and you develop them, and then you find out that they don't work out or they're not a good fit for that particular job. That costs an organization a lot of money. So assessment and selection is key to really outfitting the organizations that we're working with now to help build organizations of the future. And then once you hire the best people, how do you retain them? How do you develop fair and legal hiring practices? Performance management systems, diverse workforce, strategies to deal with absenteeism, harassment. These are all different areas that IO psychologists and practitioners work in, depending upon your area of focus or your area of concentration. And the best thing about this field is you can really look to see where your interest lies. So you may find that consulting is something that you want to do, but let's narrow that down a little bit more. So what area do you want to consult in? Would you like to consult with an organization to work with assessment and selection? Would you like to work with an organization to perhaps develop legal and fair hiring practices and handle more of the legal aspects and become an advisor to an organization in that area? Are you looking to perhaps develop performance management systems or EAP programs? Those are all areas that we find IO psychologists excel. So again, as you think about this career and you think about this profession, really try to focus in on what is it that you're passionate about, what type of work would you like to do, because there's such a varied opportunity for you in so many different areas, and there's never any boredom in this position or this career. That's what I love about it the most, is that let's say you're working with an organization on assessment and selection, and so you do a lot of work with new hires, and that you're tired of doing that, or perhaps you need something a little bit more challenging. Well, there's always an opportunity to go into something else or do something different. Perhaps you want to eventually teach and help to grow and develop upcoming IO psychologists. That's also an opportunity that's there for you. So again, lots of opportunities, lots of areas of focus that can change and vary as you grow and develop as a professional. Moving forward. So in what areas do IO psychologists work? We touched on that a little bit, and this shows you some of the different areas of employment that you can consider. Performance and evaluation, legal, workplace health, compensation, employee behaviors and issues. For instance, motivation and reward systems. You may want to work with developing and implementing and evaluating motivation and reward programs, such as goal-setting programs or pay-for-performance plans. You may want to work with organizational development. I think I heard earlier that some of you had expressed an interest in that area. So that would involve analyzing organizational structures and climates, maximizing the satisfaction and effectiveness of individuals and work groups, and facilitating organizational change. Change is a term you're going to hear a lot in our field right now, again, because of the fact that we're building the organizations of the future. So now organizations are going through the change process in various elements of their organization. So you'll find that you will become a catalyst for change and really have an integral part of working with organizations to help facilitate that change and overcome resistance to any change initiatives that are taking place within the organization. Another big one is quality of work life. You know, identifying factors associated with job attitudes, designing and implementing programs to reduce work stress and strain, developing programs that promote safe work behavior, prevention of accidents, illnesses. Those are all areas that we work in. And so again, if you look at all of these different areas of focus, I'm sure you can find one or two that interest you, or perhaps they all do. And so it's such an exciting field to really become a part of. Moving forward. Okay, so we'll just go a little bit further into some of the things that you saw on the previous chart. So we're talking about testing and training again. IO psychology is an evidence-based science. Psychology is an evidence-based science. So everything we do is based on evidence. So whatever we do, when we go into an organization, and we diagnose the organization issue or problem that we're brought in as a consultant, or if we're an internal employee with that organization, every intervention or every action plan that we develop within that organization is based on data. It's based on what we have gleaned from testing and assessment within that organization. So it can include tests of job knowledge, skills, and reasoning. It can include test fairness, selection and promotion, recruiting, hiring, training and development, computer-based learning, employee attitudes and satisfaction assessment, employee motivation factors, that what really motivates employees to perform effectively. So we wouldn't go in to think, okay, how do we determine what motivates employees? So it would not be a belief-based decision that we make when we're addressing the organization as to providing a solution to the problem for motivation, if in fact that's what we're brought in to do. But it would be based on the data after we actually did a test or an assessment of employee motivation, so that we can see quantitatively or qualitatively actually what's happening with those employees within that organization and how to best structure an intervention or an action plan to address those problems or issues. Moving forward. Again, another big area that we work in is organizational development. I talked to you earlier about change management, mergers, acquisitions, group processes, re-engineering of the different processes within an organization, productivity and quality improvement. Strategic planning is a big area that we work in. Surveys to address climate and culture of the organization, job design. I won't read the slide to you. You can see it there. But these are areas that really are very relative to what we're doing now, especially workforce planning. With the downsizing, now what we're doing is what we term as right sizing, and so that's an area that we work in. Human resource management. Now, the way that we work with human resource management is very different from the business model. IO psychologists or practitioners, they actually go in and provide the scientific evidence that HR managers can then use in developing strategies and decisions or training programs to address whatever specific organizational or employee issue that the IO psychologist is brought in to work with. Moving forward. Performance evaluation and assessment. Again, I said this is a very big area as well. The research expertise and in-depth knowledge of employee attitudes and behaviors. Again, as an evidence-based science, we base everything on our data and what we understand based on assessments and working with the organization to implement strategies for change and strategies to address any specific organizational problem or challenge that we're brought in to work with. Moving forward. This is another area, too, that sometimes individuals don't realize, that we also work with the legal aspects of an organization. We work with discrimination, maybe developing policies, jury decision processes. That can be an area of focus for someone that's interested in that. We've also been often asked to testify before Congress and write federal legislation on workplace issues because we are the experts. And the Society for Industrial Organizational Psychologists, which is a division of the American Psychological Association, Division 14, they're often asked to provide IO psychologists to actually do just that, to work with and testify before Congress, to work with these legislation or workplace issues. So that's an area that we're recognized as being the experts, as I said earlier. And then EEO and AA. Workplace health, we spend a lot of time at work, and it really impacts us, and it impacts our families. And so workplace health ergonomics, how are your workstations set up to provide optimal productivity, how do you, and to reduce any type of safety issues or human factors. Stress and burnout is a major area of our competence, and we work a lot with workplace violence. We've seen that happen and become more and more prevalent. So how do you work with workplace violence? How do you avoid those types of things from occurring, and how do you work with the individual and the organizations once those things do occur? As I said earlier, my area of expertise is in crisis management, and that's also a big area for us and something that you may be interested in. Compensation and benefits is another area too. So this is just to give you a very broad overview of what you can do and the areas that you can work in as an IO psychologist. So pretty exciting, isn't it? Again, employee behavior issues, employee issues, labor relations, quality of work-life balance. Those are all areas. Big one, virtual employee engagement, as I said earlier, that's really a real upcoming and growing area of interest, and how to actually engage the workplace employee that is working virtually. Moving forward. So just to give you an idea of what the job titles are, because some students that I've talked with, and they think that they just have to have the title of IO psychologist in the actual job title, but this is just to show you that that's not necessarily the case. You can be a corporate president, vice president, director, manager, coordinator, principal, staff member, consultant of all of these various elements, and they very much align with what we just talked about as the different areas that you can work in. You could be a project manager, you could be an executive coach, you could be an external consultant, which means you go in and work with organizations on a needed basis, not part of the organization, but externally coming in to assist. Or you can be an internal consultant where they hire you to come in and work with the organization in an ongoing basis. Moving forward. In academia, as I said earlier, you may want to teach, with the master's degree, you can teach in undergraduate, some of those areas, disciplines, you're prepared to work in those different disciplines. If you have a PhD, you can become a full associate or assistant professor of also those various disciplines. So it's very well prepared to work in various disciplines of psychology with an IO psychology degree. Moving forward. So career advancement. So we have professional development and networking strategies. We now have some faculty and one of our alumni that they're going to talk to you about their own professional development and how they have actually networked and the strategies that they use that were successful for them in order to become more advanced in the field or to actually get into the field. And I will turn it over now to our moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. LaCivita. And next, our faculty will share their experiences and insights into career success, professional development, and networking. And our first faculty panelist is Dr. DiMatteo-Gibson. She began as an adjunct faculty member at Walden in the School of Psychology, and she started in 2005, and she now teaches or has taught organizational behavior and foundations of industrial organizational psychology at Walden. She also has taught research methods, stats, motivation, testing and assessment, career planning, organizational development, and leadership at other universities as well. And professionally, she is the Managing Director of Consulting Services of the Lifrak Group. Her work focuses on organizational effectiveness and development as well as e-learning. And Dr. DiMatteo-Gibson has also conducted presentations in areas of organizational psychology. She also obtained a certificate in distance education from Indiana University Online and a certificate in industrial design e-learning from the American Society of Training and Development. And Dr. DiMatteo-Gibson, could you share with us your career path and insights into the IO field?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much. It's really exciting to be here and to have the opportunity to share some of what I've done and what recommendations I can offer. My career path has been one where I've had different industrial organizational titles, from being an organizational development specialist to having more analyst type roles, working on different projects that were IO focused. And then starting when I worked with Sempra Energy really was my first time where I got the opportunity to be what was an internal consultant. And in that opportunity, I was able to be involved and run a variety of different organizational psychology-like projects. So I was the organizational effectiveness researcher for all the different companies. Since Sempra Energy was the parent company, I would do the survey research. And as Dr. LaCivita mentioned, our field is very evidence-based. And I felt very empowered by having and doing a lot of research and then offering suggestions that were data-driven. So I felt that one of the strengths of our field was having that skill set. So in that work really opened up many different opportunities, from developing metrics for different companies, and I really got to be involved in, as you see here, my focus areas, organizational effectiveness through survey research. I used a lot of different assessments in leadership development and coaching, and then being involved with succession planning with folks both as leaders within the company. So I'm highlighting that experience, but I had a number of different experiences as I started out in my career, so I do feel very fortunate. It was in that opportunity when I was an internal consultant, though, that I got introduced to teaching and the opportunity to train and present my knowledge to others that allowed me to be able to be both a practitioner and educator, which I find the combination very rewarding. So I got to be very involved with employee engagement and making positive improvements, which was very impactful. Moving forward.
And Dr. DiMatteo-Gibson, what professional activities and strategies contributed to your success?
That's a great question. I would say one of the strategies was, there's a couple of things. I found that networking, becoming a student member of different professional societies, was very important because I got to network with professionals. It also was very cost effective. As a professional that already has my degree, it's a lot more financially expensive, but still very feasible. But yet, as a student, they really want you to be involved. And so I just definitely encourage people to become members as a student of, say, a PSYOP or an ASTD or an OD network, things of that nature. I also was involved with the Personal Testing Council because I did a lot of selection work. So that was one thing. And then I also did a lot of presentations as a student, and was developing a competency-based selection system, and as a new practitioner in the field was able to present that to professionals that were already pretty seasoned. So that was very rewarding too. So I definitely encourage the presenting and the networking opportunities that do exist. So other strategies include joining professional organizations as a student. As I mentioned, I mentioned a few, but there's a number. Some have national memberships, and others are more regional, depending on where you live. Being a research assistant is also a great opportunity because you can really learn a lot about the steps of research, how the whole process, how research is disseminated, how you present data, and that's very rewarding, and you learn so much from that experience. One thing that's really interesting that on my last bullet, don't focus on job titles, is that when I started in this field, it was very new, and as we hear, the growth is so strong. But focus on some of the things that you want to do versus focusing on just job titles. But we're seeing such a growth in this area that you're going to see so much in regards to organizational development or organizational psychology type positions. Moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Dr. DiMatteo-Gibson, for your insights and for the great information and strategies for success, including involvement in professional associations, which we always encourage our students to do, and continuing to gain experience in the field. And next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Stephen Lifrak, who will provide another perspective on IO consulting. Dr. Lifrak received his PhD from the University of Rhode Island, and he has been associated with Walden for the past 18 years. He held various positions, both in the organizational and clinical tracks in the School of Psychology, and is presently the faculty in organizational psychology. Dr. Lifrak has also practiced as a licensed psychologist for 41 years in New York State. And during this time, he worked in many areas of psychology, including consultation, administration, research, clinical practice, and with an emphasis on change at all levels, ranging from individuals to organizations. He is active in multiple divisions of APA, a charter member of the Council for the National Register of Health Service Providers in Psychology, and a member of the Association of the State and Provincial Psychology Boards. And his areas of interest and research include transition, organizational change, the military, stress, and anger. So Dr. Lifrak, could you share your career path and insights?
Well, hi, everybody. It's good to be here, and sure, I'd be glad to do that. As I was thinking about what to say in the short time that I have, my first thinking was that I was probably destined to be an IO psychologist, even though when I was doing my initial training, there wasn't any real specialization or programs that you could go into. But my experience started, as my parents would have told you, that kid always is asking why. And that's the way it started for me. Everything was why. And not only was it that, I then was interested in what it is, and as I started to get involved in psychology, I said, well, this is all about human behavior. And if we look at IO psychology, really what it's all about, and we've heard of the various different directions you can go in, but what it really is all about is applying what we know about human behavior to the world of work. And so that has always been a view of mine, that whatever I could learn in psychology was a beginning. It was a beginning. It gave me a base. It gave us a scientific base to understand what was going on. But the real excitement and the challenge was applying that to the real world, in this case, the world of work. And so I had always thought that way, and proceeded. And it was never enough to just apply it, because that why question kept coming up. So I wanted to see the results, I wanted to evaluate it, and I wanted to go on further to then pursue more of what we knew, because we're never at the end of the path. As far as my involvement in being I've been mostly an internal consultant. By that I mean I had a different position, but the issues would come up, and I was smart enough or lucky enough to be in a position to think that I could offer something to people in the way of a scientific-based information and knowledge. And that seemed to work very well. And so over and over again, I found myself in positions where there was, I would call them groundbreaking, people needing and wanting to go in different directions, and being able to take in input that was different than what they had available to them. In this case, empirically based knowledge from psychology that could help broaden and deepen, number one, the understanding, and then number two, different ways of proceeding. I was always seen as somebody who thought out of the box. I don't think that was really the case. It's just that I had another fund of knowledge and hopefully wisdom that I could apply that was value added to what was being looked at. So I've done that over and over again, and as I look back at some of the things that where I got involved with, you can see that I had a master's in school psychology. That was back in the 60s, long time ago, in Rhode Island, where there were no school psychologists. So I was tapped to go out, cover the state, and talk to people about the merits of school psychology, and then help people start to become comfortable with how you could use that in an effective way. As I went on to get my PhD, as I said, I got it from the University of Rhode Island. It turns out I was the first clinical psychology PhD graduate from that. So even as I was a student in the clinical psychology program, I found myself helping design and further the actual program I was in to help refine what needed to be done and how to be most effective. The next area that, and it was always apply. For me, it's wonderful to have a conceptualization and a sense of a particular area, but if you can't apply it, it doesn't mean much to me. So I have always been interested in applying things in a way that's going to make things better for people, for groups, for divisions, for organizations. So another area that I ended up dealing with, just to give you a sense of the variety one person can have within organizations, another area I was in was trying to apply, working at applying psychological principles to basic training in the military. Another area was the whole area of transition for people moving from one way of life to a different way of life. And how could you use, in this case, a peer counseling kind of program and develop that to help people make that transition more effectively. Another little side study that I got involved with was helping non-swimmers learn to swim, where we had people, and it was at a military academy. It was a requirement of graduation. 10% of the people in the country don't know how to swim, and most of those are failure swimmers. They've tried, they can't, they're fearful that if they go in the water, they'll drown. And we were able to put together. Say again?
Thank you for many of these insights. Could you also talk about the opportunities in the IO field and what's available?
Well, I think my colleagues have really showed you that the whole waterfront of IO psychology is ripe for people in the world, in the area of IO psychology and the world of work. And that wasn't always the case. It turned out that over the last 30 or 40 years in psychology, it's moved from an area where they were looking at clinical issues to an area that's more centered on potential and growth and the whole issue of positiveness. When that happened, when that transition took place, all of a sudden it became easier for business and the world of work to start to look at what potential is there for us to gain from psychology that in the past people had sort of shied away from. But now, and this is what's happening right now, the world is ripe. It may be one of the reasons that that 53% fastest growing profession is there, because people now approach the area of psychology. For instance, just take sports. There's no major sport that doesn't have psychologists on their staff now to help promote progress, growth, and development of the people there. But when you went into when you were in an organization, and why don't we go to the next slide? Okay. Well, the question is, so I have all this knowledge and this ability that I want to share, and I think I can be value added to the field and to the organization. Do I just present my card, and have it work? Well, I think of it as, you made me remember the movie Field of Dreams, where the theme was build it and they will come. That's not exactly the way it works in IO psychology. You sort of have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to recognize it. As I said, the time has changed, so that's working for us in IO psychology for people to be more receptive to what we have to offer. You need to, you have to be able to look at the needs of the organization. Whenever I'm involved in doing IO work and intervening, I see myself as a visitor and a guest. And you have to design and develop what you're going to do in the world that you're going to be in. So very often we have lots of information, we have lots of data, we have lots of things to share, but it's useless unless you can share that in a way that the person you're talking to can take it in, or the organization. So that's a lot of what we do. You have to be available. You have to be involved. You have to understand the issues through the lens of the organization, not just through your lens. You have to be respectful and considerate, for after all, unless there's trust and an ability to interact in a collaborative way, little is going to be done. And then finally, I think the approaches that you come up with, again, based on empirical information and knowledge that we have to be realistic. So you need not to oversell yourself, but at the same time, you have to be value added. When you can do that, that helps you get established. Once you're established, once you do good things that have good outcomes for the organization, then the rest is fairly easy. And you have educated people as well as helped them. And then IO psychology becomes an integral part of future efforts in the many directions we talked about already.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Lifrak, for all of these insights and great tips for everyone in the audience. And now I'd like to introduce our final speaker, Dr. Brigit Olsen. Hello, Dr. Olsen. Dr. Olsen is a Walden University alumna with vast experience in IO psychology. She graduated from the PhD in Psychology Organizational Psychology program in 2011. She is an industrial organizational psychology consultant and has done this type of work since 2003. And she's also worked as an adjunct lead faculty at multiple universities since 2007. Her specialty areas are leadership development, executive coaching, corporate training, talent management and succession plan programming, curriculum design, and higher ed administration. Dr. Olsen, how did you get started in IO psychology? And Dr. Olsen, can you hear us okay? Okay, maybe we are having some issues with audio. Dr. Olsen, are you there? We're going to try again. Okay, for some reason we're having some difficulty with audio.
While we're waiting for Dr. Olsen, I just wanted to also bring out that another thought in regard to IO psychology that I think helps to drive the point home for what we do. IO psychology can really be thought of as a strategic decision science behind human capital. It really lies at the crossroads between business and psychology. So if you think about it just as finance would advise organizations on how to maximize their financial capital, an IO psychologist will go in and really teach and work and guide and direct organizations on how to maximize their human and organizational potential. I think that helps put it in perspective.
Okay, thank you, Dr. LaCivita. It sounds like we're having some issue with audio for Dr. Olsen, so I will go ahead and share her story. How did Dr. Olsen get started in IO psychology? She originally started in real estate and later decided to pursue a career in business. Her first corporate position after managing real estate developments was at the Home Depot, where she was employed for 2 years. And she was always interested in human resources and was promoted to HR manager at that organization.
Hi, Dina. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Olsen. I'm glad you're joining us here. I started telling the audience a little bit about your background, but can you tell us how you got started in IO psychology?
Sure. I'm so sorry about that. I ended up just calling on the telephone. So thanks so much for having me here. It's just an honor to talk with all of you guys about this great program. And I'm lucky to have started with Walden in 2004. So it seems like a long time ago, but it's really served me well. But I originally started in real estate, and I just knew I needed some more corporate experience, and I ended up taking a position at just a local Home Depot store with the goal of getting promoted to human resource manager. And then I started teaching classes and fell in love with the educational components of HR management and got into corporate training that way. And I just had a really particular interest in leadership development and coaching. And I eventually started teaching courses and expanding to other stores in the region. And I took every opportunity that I could to work with new leaders as they joined the organization and work with leadership development in that way. As a part of the Home Depot, I really was exposed to a lot of the different aspects, both from their corporate, they employ a lot of IO psychologists down in Atlanta at their corporate headquarters, but I was implementing those programs as an HR manager, so I was sort of getting both ends of that spectrum, which was extremely helpful to me in such a huge company. Yeah, and it just really further fueled my interest in IO.
Great, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Olsen. And how did your experience at Walden help you further define your career direction?
Well, at Walden, it was actually one of my residencies where I started to realize that I didn't know enough about this organizational psychology field. And I thought I had to pursue psychology and make a difference in the world, I thought I had to be a counseling psychologist. And that's the program I was initially in at Walden. I started talking and learning more about this field and realized that I did not have to depart my, my sales and marketing interests and all of the business experience that I had, and there was this field called IO Psych that blended all of that together for me, and I switched programs and I haven't looked back, and it's been great.
Excellent. And after you obtained your PhD, you landed a full-time position as a learning and development consultant in the healthcare industry. What factors contributed to your career success?
Well, I had corporate training experience at the Home Depot, Fortune 500 company, so that was significant. I also had a lot of academic experience. I was recruited to start teaching at a local university, and I never really saw myself as a professor at all. That just sort of happened, and I started seeing the need in higher ed for administrative leadership and started getting more involved in programs that way as well. Despite not having any healthcare industry experience, though, I was able to showcase my skills and my organizational approach to this panel, and I taught a kind of a mini lesson in leadership development to the hiring managers and her department, and I was able to get that position, and I worked as an organizational development consultant, an internal consultant for a hospital.
Excellent. And what other roles did you hold since obtaining your degree?
Well, I've really been able to create a solid, flexible career for myself consisting of multiple IO-related projects and activities. So I do a lot of teaching. I do some IO consulting, through the years, I've overlapped my interest in consulting, business, higher ed teaching, and administration. I've been able to teach courses at multiple universities, both as an adjunct and lead faculty. I ended up moving out to Los Angeles at one point to help start a program, a master's level program in industrial organizational psychology. Throughout all of this, I just developed an expertise in leadership development, coaching, corporate training, and you know, it's really the career in this program really prepared me to step in and out of both academic realms, and even though that wasn't a part of my original goal, I'm qualified to do that now, and it's been really exciting.
It sounds like you wore and currently wear many different hats and have a portfolio career where you have experience as an IO consultant in higher ed, in various specialty areas, and that you really tailor your experience toward each and every client or employer. So this is very interesting and valuable for us to hear. And what advice would you give to Walden students who are seeking to enter the IO field?
My advice would probably be to just get experience in management in any realm that you can. Retail is one of those areas where I feel like it's easy to sort of climb the ladder sometimes, or it can be, depending on the organization. There's no substitute for getting solid management experience behind you. I also wouldn't hesitate to switch industries and to really challenge yourself. When I worked in healthcare, I didn't imagine that I would ever do that. I didn't imagine that I would ever work in the academic realm either. But I've been open to opportunities where there's a need and where my skill set seems to match. And you know, it's very fearful to just completely change industries, but that's where I've gotten this broad approach, and I am a better consultant because I've worked in different industries now, and I understand how to apply sort of the scholar practitioner model that I learned at Walden, and it's been a really valuable experience. So anytime you have management experience, anytime you have an opportunity to learn and stretch yourself, I would take it. And also echo what someone had mentioned earlier, is not to be chasing any certain title, but to really go where your interests lie and build experience that way.
Dr. Olsen, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational story and all of the great tips and experiences. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for questions from our audience. So audience, if you have questions for any of our panelists, please go ahead and type in your questions. And again, we will address questions with the widest applicability to our audience today. And to help us get started, our first question to our panel, and this goes out to all of you, is I would like to enter the IO field and have no prior experience in this area. What number one tip would you have for me to get started?
I have a great recommendation that really worked well for me. This is Donna. Volunteer. Once you get that experience, a lot of times, you know, sometimes doing things that aren't paid is not very ideal. But when it's on, once you get that experience and it's on your resume, so many opportunities open up. So it doesn't have to be a long-term experience. It might be just a project that maybe somebody in the field is working on and they can use some help. Connecting with those people at different conferences or different professional meetings and offering your assistance, you'll learn a lot and you'll get some great experience, and that often opens many doors.
Gina, I also have some advice to offer on that too. When I first got started, I offered to write business plans for free to local business owners in my small town in Wisconsin. If I knew them, that would be great, you know. But if not, I would, you know, you could reach out to local chamber of commerce and see if there's any struggling business owners. Try to see if you can just sit down and listen. Take any opportunity to listen to business owners' needs and try to figure out if there's anything that you can do to try to help people for free while you get started, and that's really valuable experience.
I would say
Probably not what you want to hear.
I would say the most important thing is to listen and to appreciate the culture that you're going into, and tailor what you have to offer to the world that exists, rather than to believe that you're bringing in totally new issues. Which are, to me, as you can show people that you're dealing with how you can be value added to their view of things, that builds on what they know and builds on who they are, you have the best chance of making headway.
Okay, thank you everyone for contributing to that question. Great responses there, and let's go on with our next question. Within the growth, are there any drawbacks to being defined as organizational psych than IO psych? So I guess the question is between, what is the difference between organizational psych and IO psych?
Excuse me, I'll take that question. This is Dr. LaCivita. Organizational psychology is very much the same as IO psychology. There is a distinct, there are distinct sides to, there's an I side and there's an O side to IO psychology. So you have to look at your program of study to determine whether or not you're learning, the various sides of both of the fields. And in particular, our program here at Walden, when we upgraded the program, we have a very balanced side between the I and the O. So just to clarify, so industrial psychologists, they're concerned with individual factors in selection, placement, job analysis and design, safety and training, while organizational psychologists have examined the role of interpersonal relations and individual differences, especially in training and development programs. So they do similar things, and there's a great deal of overlap between the I and the O side. However, there are certain, it's a different area of focus. It's a different area of looking at things, where one, you're looking more at the organization itself, and the other that you're looking more at the individual factors within that organization. That's the only difference between the I and the O side. And so different content areas that you'll study and that you'll practice in will perhaps be more of an I slant or more of an O slant, but again, there is a very tight intersection between the two, and they complement each other. Organizational psychology was the terminology that was used for quite some time. IO psychology has since emerged as the title that is prevalent in the field and representative of a professional organization.
Great, thank you, Dr. LaCivita. And we're just going to take a couple more questions here because of time constraints. The next one is, I am ABD. Should I be looking for a job now, or should I wait until I finish my PhD?
Now. I think to echo what my colleagues were just saying, there's no time like the present to get involved, whether that be in volunteering. I mean, even myself, I remember when I emerged into the field, I did so many leadership presentations and workshops for free initially, just to get the experience and just to get my name out there and to really help to hone my craft, for lack of a better terminology of how to say that. So you really should be, there's no reason that you can't look for a position now. If you go onto the SIOP website, it's SIOP.org, which is the Society for Industrial Organizational Psychologists. They have a job center where they list various jobs, and you'll see quite a few of them are not, they're not requiring that PhD. So with the experience that you're going to bring to the table, as far as what you've learned in your coursework, you may be able to get an internship. You may be able to get something that is entry-level position that you will then build upon once you complete your degree. You should be thinking about presenting at professional workshops, like at the SIOP conference, at the ASTD conference, the various organizations that we talked about. You know, you're writing fantastic papers in your classes. There's no reason that you can't turn one of those papers into a journal article. So start thinking about how to really emerge and how to get into the field. But I think, you know, if you're ready to start work and that's something that you'd like to pursue at this point of your academic career, there's no reason why you can't start to seek out entry-level positions or positions that don't require that degree, because there are quite a few of those out there that will help you to get the experience you need to really grow and develop in the field.
Great, thank you, Dr. LaCivita. And our final question is, have panelists seen licensing issues?
I can field that unless somebody else wants it. IO psychology is not required to have a license. In fact, there is no licensing credential specifically for IO psychologists. We have a few states, and I think there are 5 right now in the United States, that will allow IO psychologists to sit for licensure. And again, it's not a requirement, it is an option, should you choose to do so. But the exam that you're taking is the EPPP, which is the licensing exam for clinical and counseling psychologists. So you would have to you know, meet the criteria to sit for that. So licensure is not an issue for IO psychology at this juncture. Do I anticipate that sometime in the future we may be addressing that? Maybe, maybe not. But we have so many professionals in the field, and I would say the vast majority of them are not licensed because, again, that is not it's not a licensure track career.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make a comment that we are getting some really great feedback about the panelists. One of our audience members says, what amazing people, so inspiring. And I would have to agree with that. So thank you so much, everyone. And now I'd like to wrap up our program with the following resources. Visit the Career Services Center website and utilize our many career resources to continue your career exploration. So we heard many great tips on how to get started, and we offer many tools to help you do so on our site. Also, create a profile on LinkedIn.com. LinkedIn is the largest professional networking site, and join these and other LinkedIn groups to connect with other IO professionals and grow your network. To connect with Career Services, please join our LinkedIn group, follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and read student success stories on our blog and share your success stories with us. And don't forget, you can access additional resources on the Career Center website or ask questions by emailing careerservices@waldenu.edu. And now for some final thoughts. There are many career paths and opportunities available. And I leave you with the following quotes. The first one from Jennifer Ritchie Payette, who says that your career is like a garden. It can hold an assortment of its life energy that yields a bounty for you. You do not need to grow just one thing in your garden. You do not need to do just one thing in your career. And our second quote is from John Dewey, who says that to find out what one is fitted to do and to secure an opportunity to do it is the key to happiness. So we hope you continue to grow and advance in your career and find your perfect fit.